Hi, y'all. This is Kristen Chenoweth.
Hi, I'm Gloria Stefan.
This is Sarah Bareilles.
Hi, I'm Patty Lapone.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Theater Podcast, intimate personal conversations with the industry's biggest names. I'm Alan Seals, and our guest for this episode is none other than Lydia Deetz herself, Elizabeth Teeter. She was actually cast as Lydia before the pandemic had, I think, 3 days of rehearsal, and then pew, the world shuts down. And then so now she's able to actually get into the role. She's back on stage. Oh my gosh, such a wonderful person to talk to. She's so introspective and self-aware. I have so much respect for the journey she's been on in her career, personally and professionally. At 13, she was working alongside Helen Mirren. She was on her own, completely on her own at age 14 in New York City, having this complete level of independence that most 14-year-olds don't even come close to having. It's ridiculous. So I can't wait to share this story with you. Find me online, Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, and leave a rating and a review wherever you're listening. And now everybody, please enjoy this episode with Elizabeth Teeter.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
Our guest today is a true triple threat who was previously seen on Broadway in The Audience alongside Helen Mirren, The Crucible, and Mary Poppins, and as Lily alongside LaShawns in the world premiere of The Secret Life of Bees at Atlantic Theater Company. Now on stage at the Marquee Theater as Lydia Deetz. Elizabeth Teeter, welcome to the Theater Podcast.
Thank you. So good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh my goodness, this has been a show that has been resurrected from the dead, as many other things in this show. And I don't know how widespread this is, but I want to dive real quick into the fact that you were, before the pandemic, you were already going to be Lydia. You were already in rehearsals. It just hadn't been announced yet, right?
Yeah, I was like 3 days into rehearsals. Nothing had really been announced at all. I had barely met anyone. And then we shut down. So it was kind of weird. I feel like I got the part twice because I didn't know if the show was coming back. I didn't know if I was coming back. We didn't really know anything. And so I kind of, was brought back in 2 years later, and then they offered me it again. So now I'm here. So it's very full circle and crazy that 2 years later, the show is back and I can finally do it.
Well, did you have to go through the exact same audition process again when you were coming back after the pandemic, or did it kind of pick up where it left off?
Sort of. It was sort of that and sort of different. It was more just because they had such limited time with me before, and it'd been 2 years, and they just sort of brought me back in to kind of see the team and just sort of workshop and see where I was after 2 years. And, it's a big score. So we kind of just sang through a lot of the music. And then, so it was sort of a strange process. But, we had a whole pandemic. So that's also strange.
Well, coming out of the pandemic, I was reading that you sort of you relate to Lydia in a way, right? Because well, I'll let you tell it, but there's some sort of connection that you've got to the character as trying to find a place, trying to be okay with being alone, right?
Yeah. I think we all spent a lot of time alone during the pandemic, and for me, it was a sort of good experience. I think I learned to sort of, how do I say this? Figure out my other interests and figure out other things I like to do, explore different creative things. But it also was this weird feeling of feeling stuck in this time loop. And I think Lydia feels stuck throughout the majority of the show. She doesn't really know what to do. She doesn't feel like she's seen. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, especially during this pandemic. And especially I know people my age, it's been a hard transition trying to go to school, trying to go to college or high school and feeling like you're in this bubble and are struggling and no one's seeing you, or, there are bigger things going on in the world, etc. So I think it's definitely coming back. I think there is more to the show. I feel like the entire cast felt that when we came back and we read it. There were things in the show that had more gravity than they did before.
So how much of the cast knew that you were coming in as Lydia before the pandemic? Because I guess my question is, like, were you meeting the majority of the cast post-pandemic after all this was done, or had you started rehearsals with anybody other than the stage management beforehand?
Sort of barely. It's actually a funny story because I was just rehearsing pretty much with stage management. Because it was only a few days. I had gone to the theater and before the show, briefly met everyone. Like, I kind of ran into the dressing rooms and waved and whatever. And Adam, who plays my dad, was like, "Hope we have a show for you, elbow, elbow." Like, as like everyone was like, not like, we were very much like, do we shake hands? Do we like, because we had just heard about the virus kind of. And so it was very funny to be like, "Oh, haha, like, don't shake my hand." And he literally on the stairs said, "Well, I hope we have a show for you to do." And I was like, "What do you mean we don't have a show?" I had no clue. It didn't even cross my mind that Broadway would be shutting down. And then literally the next day, I was in the rehearsal studio and, stage management gets a call that the show's canceled. We had an hour left of rehearsal. So we just like finished up what we were doing. And then I looked in and was like, "See you tomorrow, maybe." And then I went home for a year.
Oh, wow.
So it was bizarre. It was crazy and scary, honestly.
Well, so then the beginning of rehearsals when you were with stage management and you're doing, and you're developing the character, right? And it had already been the role was already there. It had already been established. And you're coming in, obviously, bringing yourself to it. But
yeah,
the finding yourself and the finding your hobbies and the isolation that we were all forced to go through during the quarantine and during the pandemic, did that allow you to come back to look at Lydia and look at the show and the story in a different way? Like, are you doing the show differently now than you think you would have had you gone on a year ago?
Yeah. Oh, I think so. I think I'm just like, I think it's the right. I mean, to quote Delia, everything happens for a reason, but
sucks yes.
Sucks yes. Yeah, no, I think it's just like, I feel like a different person. I'm still myself, but I feel like a different person. And I think we've all grown over the past couple of years, and I feel like I know myself more. I feel like I'm more prepared, and also I just feel like I came in with a stronger sense of self, which also helps inform the character that you're playing. And yeah, I mean, I had such a brief time. It's so strange because I had such a brief time with the character before, but then it was this sort of looming 2 years of maybe doing it, maybe not. So she was always kind of in the back of my mind, but I never, anyone knows this with theater is you can't get attached to anything because you never know if it's going to happen. So it's not like I was like constantly working on the music or constantly working on the show or whatever. But there was always that little thing back in my mind knowing that like I might get to visit her again. And yeah, I think it's just like I was lucky enough to have some performing experience throughout the 2 years. I got to do in the summer I got to do Sound of Music at the Muni, and I got to do the Glass Menagerie, which was really cool. And then like also just I feel like the time away and the time alone and away from performing helped me come back with a sense of gratitude to performing that was always there, but I think just heightened. And so I feel like I grew as a person, but also those experiences helped me grow as a performer to now be doing the show. And I wouldn't be able to do it if I didn't have that time off. So I think it all sort of worked out. And yeah, I don't know if that answers the question okay, but
well, it does. I think it really does, because it gives you the perspective of what you said. Like you've been able to go away, find things that are not performing related. Because I feel, I mean, like what, you were 13, I think, when you were on stage next to Helen Mirren, right? Like
yes,
of all people, you're 13. And when you're 13, right, you think you own the world. Like that's right at the beginning of thinking you own the world. And so at that time, right, I feel like, well, I guess talk me through what you were feeling, because you're on stage, you're with LaChanze, you're with Helen Mirren, you're on like in this massive production of Mary Poppins, like
Mhm.
as a kid, right? Like it's funny because if you put your name into Google, right, it's all of it's like a several years of school headshots, like growing
Yes.
up, right? You have
I know,
different
it's
head-
like, who's that? Who's that?
Yeah. So you've been able to have different types of shows. You've done musicals and plays and serious and
sorry, my cat.
comedies. And there's a cat. Oh,
My cat. This is my cat Henry. I got him in the fall. He's gonna be one. Sorry, everyone.
Oh, he's so cute. And okay, so sorry, I've got cat on my brain now. So yeah, you're going through and you've got different perspectives and different types of shows, comedy, drama, musicals, plays.
Yeah.
And I guess now coming into Beetlejuice, how have you used all of this to sort of shape who you are now, your sense of self,
Yeah.
right? Because Beetlejuice as a show, it's a very serious show. It deals with death, it deals with loneliness, but it's presented like the serious subject matter is presented in a very funny way.
Yeah.
And that's
what I love about it. I think that's what's like brilliant about the show is, you go in thinking, oh, this is going to be so fun and it's a comedy, and then it's strangely moving and talks about a lot of serious issues, which I think is just such a brilliant way to merge those two together, and such a cool thing to be able to do. But yeah, I think I've been actually thinking about this a lot lately of just like, I find myself feeling a lot more grateful and reflecting on those past experiences more. Obviously, I knew what a big deal it was and how exciting it was when I was 13, but you're also 13. You're just, doing the show and having fun. And, now I go, oh my God, that was Helen Mirren. Like, I asked Helen Mirren to be a part of, like a backstage video with me or something. Like, what was I thinking? No, but it's people like that, like Helen Mirren, Ben Whishaw, who was in the Crucible with me, LaShawn, Saquon, and all of these people, I think really, really taught me what it's like to be a good company member, and not just on stage, but off stage. What I always say about Helen is that she is everything you'd want her to be and more, and that she's, the top of the top, and treated every single person, every cast member, every crew member like they were her equal. She would do so many things for me and Sadie, who shared the role. She would, I always say we got invited to go watch the Tony Awards because she was nominated and some people were nominated from our cast. And, we were up in the balcony, like getting in our seats, and we get this call from company management that was like, Helen's looking for you. And she comes off the red carpet in her gown to the corner of the street and is like, politely arguing with the security members to let us come by. She's like, no, you don't understand. Like, they need to come back with me. And she she dragged us under the carpet to take pictures with her and like brought us down to bow with her on opening night and all of this stuff, and would constantly be, sort of talking with us and talking to me about little moments we could find and match our physicality and all of this sort of masterclass work that, she didn't have to do that, but she did, and it has had this lasting impression on me that I still think about today, which is just such a good example of how you want to be. And I mean, I think that too in this company of people, we are all in Beetlejuice, we are all a team, and it doesn't matter what role you are or position, but we all work together. And I think like people like that in previous shows have really sort of hopefully I carrying that on, but yeah, it's just sort of like osmosis, like all of these amazing people.
That's the best way. It's absolutely the best way. And I love that you're able to recognize that. And there's so much I guess what am I trying to say? Is that the people that I've found the most successful over the years are the people who are always trying to help others be better.
Yes.
And because, case in point, right? Helen's trying to help you become a better performer, and so you can work together and make a better show. And then I'm sure she's discovering things about herself in the whole process. And so there's people like this that they continue to work, and they continue people want to continue to hire them because they had this reputation for being the person you want to work with again.
Yes. Yeah.
And I absolutely love that. And I feel like you've, like, just in this little bit of time we've been talking that you're taking this away, like you recognize that and you're like, this is how I need to behave, right? We need to help others. We need to teach others, and a rising tide lifts all ships, because if we can help everybody.
And especially now, I feel like it's like we get to, in this crazy time, like we get to put on a Broadway musical. Like how lucky and cool is that? It's sort of like this amazing special thing we get to do. So it's a combination of like knowing that privilege and feeling grateful for this crazy experience. But then also, I think having had worked with all of these people sort of debunked the myth of like Broadway and all of these, this person and that person. It really comes down to like the work of it. Like it is hard work, and the best of the best people like Helen and Ben and all of these people, it's like they are not focused on all of this stuff. They are focused on the work and how to create a good show. And that, it doesn't matter if it's Broadway or if it's regional theater, community theater, whatever. Like that is what theater is. And it doesn't matter where you're doing it. It's just that, we want to do our best and put on a good show and be a team. And I think I'm so grateful that I've had those sort of mentors. I didn't go to school necessarily for acting, but it's like I got my own school of like teachers through these shows, and, directors like Alex Timbers, who are just like the best. He's how you want to run a show. He's how you want to run a ship. And, working with different people like that has just been amazing. And also just, like different shows in general. Like my people will sometimes ask me like if I have a dream show or a dream role, and I really don't know, just because I want to try it all. I just want to try, different things and have it be. It's just so much. It's so fun, and I think it informs every other role that you do.
Well, you're a ballet dancer, right? Like you've got a lot of training in ballet and point. Like I see all these pictures on Instagram with like point shoes and whatnot. Yeah. And I don't feel like you haven't been on Broadway in a dancing role yet, right?
No, but I really want to. That is actually something I was like thinking about is I've gotten lucky to do all these, acting and singing roles, but I'd love to dance more. I started ballet when I was like 7, and I was pretty serious about it for a while. And there was a small like window of time where I thought that's maybe what I wanted to do. And then I was like, oh man, that is a lot. That is 110%. You got to be all ballet. And I had too many other interests. But ballet is something that sort of is like my, it helps center me. Like I like to try to go to class sometimes before a show or during the day, just because it is very like peaceful for me. I mean, it can be. I think because the stress of it of when I was younger is away, because I'm not trying to pursue it seriously, but I'm just doing it something, to keep my body in check, and because I enjoy it, it's very. I really love it. Yeah.
Well, okay. So you started it performing ballet at 7. So did you originally get into performing to dance, or did you see did you have any? Do you remember any sort of like touchstone moment where you're like, I've seen such and such on this place or that place, and I have to do that too?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was always theater for me. I did my first show I did at the Muni Theater in St. Louis, where I grew up. When I was 7, I did Meet Me in St. Louis. And my parents are both in theater. My dad is an actor, and or he doesn't really act anymore, but he's a teacher, professor of musical theater. And I always say that like my parents are the opposite of stage parents, and that they didn't push me into any of it, but it has been amazing to have parents understand what the industry is and have a lens in that way, and a lot of surrogate aunts and uncles. But I also have 3 siblings who have many different interests and hobbies, and they like made sure we were all equally attended to, which I think helped me stay grounded, and that I wasn't this like, being pushed into this and pushed into that. But I always say like I begged my dad to just bring me to shows when I was 5 or whatever. And then I begged them to let me audition, and they were like, okay, like sort of hesitant about it. But I think it was just like, I knew like the first show I did when I was 7, I think a lot of people have this similar experience of I was always just playing pretend. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, I get to play pretend with other people. This is so fun. I don't remember being scared. It's so funny. I get way more nervous now that I'm older. I don't remember being nervous. I don't remember being scared when I was younger. I just thought it was like my imagination come to life with other people. And I'm trying to think of an exact show. I mean, I saw a lot of shows when I was younger, but I mean, classic, I went to see like Wicked on tour, I think, when I was 9. And, you know, Defying Gravity happens and it's so cliche, but the curtain came down and I was like, I want to do that. I don't know what that was, but I want to do it. And then I ended up seeing it again on tour at the same theater like 10 years later when I was, 19 or had done all these shows in B's. And I remember I started crying during the overture because I was just like, I was sitting here 10 years ago and I'm still doing what I want to do. And how cool is that I've had these experiences and I'm still, I remember that moment of sitting there just in awe. And I got to, experience that again, having done all of this, done what I wanted to do.
So your Broadway debut then was Mary Poppins?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you were the Banks daughter. I'm total brain fart.
Jane Banks.
Jane Banks. Yeah, of course.
Jane and Michael Banks.
Jane and Michael Banks. So you were in St. Louis at the time you got this, and so you moved to New York for the show,
Yeah.
or was it? How did that work?
Yeah, so I was in St. Louis. I had just recently sort of came to New York to audition, get an agent, sort of start doing all of the auditions for kids shows and things, and I got offered Mary Poppins, and it was crazy because it was my 5th grade year. I was 10, and my whole family, we sort of picked up and moved. My dad still stayed for work and kind of came back and forth, but my family and I always say that was one of our favorite years of the family because I have a twin brother. I have a little sister who's 4 years younger, and then another little sister. So we were like 10, 10, 6, and 3.
Wow.
And we all picked up and moved to this little place in New York, and my mom like homeschooled us. And we just like, it was honestly one of the best years that I ever, just because it was like New York was just this so different than this little like Midwest bubble I'd lived in, and my parents had lived in New York for years. So, and all over the place, but it was just like completely opened up this world of culture in New York. And we were going to all these different playgrounds and museums, and, doing the show was just the most magical thing ever. And so then, we went back to St. Louis afterwards, and it was like I feel like we were suddenly like, what? There's so much out there. There's so much out there in New York and the world. And so that was crazy because we all kind of picked up and moved. But then as I kept getting more things, obviously my family was like, that's not possible. So the next show with the audience, my mom came with me. But then when I did the Crucible, when I was 14, I went by myself. I stayed with a host family who,
Wow.
So I stayed with a host family who we met randomly through some people that I knew in a show. And they were so generous to just let me stay with them. But their schedules were so opposite than mine that I didn't really see them. So it was kind of crazy because I felt like I was kind of living the life of a college student at 14, and that I was like taking the subway by myself. I was doing my laundry. I was grocery shopping, and I was 14 years old. And so it was this crazy experience of like the show, but also I feel like I grew up like 5 years in that 6 months that I was by myself. And obviously I talked to my parents every day. They were very involved, but it was just like this wild experience of, when I moved officially or like to New York to, start college or whatever, it didn't feel like anything new because I had been here by myself so much that I had so many friends and people that were like, oh my gosh, I'm leaving home. And I was like, this doesn't feel like anything to me.
Wow.
So yeah, that was, and then I came back again for B's by myself, and my family would come visit in the summer. So it was a lot of back and forth, but also the way the shows were spread out, I went to high school. Like I almost had my complete high school back home. So I think that was also a nice thing, is I did get that normalcy of public school. And like I didn't completely have like one of those crazy childhoods where you just don't have a normal life. And I think that's something that my parents were really protective of, is they were, I auditioned for things, but they really wanted me to have a childhood, which I think is super important.
We're going to take a short break. Stay tuned for more of the episode. As you were saying that you were taking the subway by yourself when you were 14, right? I was thinking about, what was I doing at 14? Would I have been able to do this? And I think New York and, a very select few other major metropolitan cities, because of the amount of people, the amount of resources, and the amount of public transportation that are in these places, New York being, like the center of the world. Of course, we can say that because we live here now.
Yes.
Is that you can have, when you are 12, 13, 14, you can have this level of autonomy without a car, without having to even know how to drive or ride a bike.
It's normal here.
Yeah.
Which is so different than the little neighbor. I love where I grew up, but it is very, it is sort of very suburban bubble, like a lot of sort of like, not my family, but it can be a lot of like helicopter parenty kind of thing where it's like, I'm sure a lot of people were like, you did what at 14? But it's just so normal here. And so, I always say that like the show in New York, like half and half were the experience. Half of it was the show and half of it was having to grow up and, gain independence and stuff that I really don't think I would have if I just lived back home.
I agree, because you're a product of your situation. And obviously you've got the wherewithal and the comfortability. God, when I was 14, I probably wouldn't have been able to I would have been like, I can't do this, I'm coming home. Right. But you were able to say like, I
have those moments. Yes. I definitely got homesick,
Well, actually, I'll ask about that in a second. But I was going to say that there are these times when you had the wherewithal and the drive and the focus to just say like, this is what I'm going to do. And you're forced to grow up depending on what your situation is. And some people are forced to grow up in good situations and bad situations, depending on what it is. And obviously, like, I feel like your parents obviously knew that, or they trusted that you would figure it out. I don't think it doesn't sound like they would have just let you come to one of the biggest, busiest cities in the world.
No.
And be like, I guess hopefully she'll figure out, whatever.
Well, and I'd been enough because like after Mary Poppins, I went back home, to do school, but we kind of kept coming back in the summer. Like the next summer I came back to do like a ballet intensive when we were here for months. And then I ended up coming back for, another show and we would visit in the summer. So it was like, I had a good sort of off and on it's so funny when people ask me like, how long have you lived in New York? And I'm like, I really don't know off and on, like off and on, like the months put together, probably like a good amount of time. And also I did have a lot of surrogate family here through my parents' journey with theater and the arts. And I had a lot of adults in here that were like, if you ever need anything, we're here. So it's not like I'm in a completely new city and didn't know anyone. It was hard though, because I didn't know a lot of people my age, which was hard. Like coming in at like 14 and then 17 for Bees. I'm always like the youngest on the show. So I love the company, but it's also like, it was, looking back, I was like, it was difficult because I didn't have those school comrades and people. And it's easier now that I'm an adult where it's like, you can find friends and things through this and that and the other, but it's very difficult, I think, when you're not in school to meet people your age in New York.
Even as an
adult, honestly,
an older adult. Well, yeah, I'm sitting here like I don't know how to make friends.
I have 3. Like my 3 friends listening to this are like, okay.
Hey, what about me?
What about me?
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough because I think in general, right, in school and in sports or whatever the case is, you're forced to be around people in a good way, right? You're shared interest and you're around people and you get to know them. And yeah, especially as an adult, when you lose that camaraderie of school and you lose the like, there's no sports teams. I mean, so that's why a lot of adults get into playing like kickball, right? It's that thing that a lot of out of shape adults can do. Like, I can play kickball just because they want a club to belong to.
Yeah. So it's like great because I have these, company of people and like Beetlejuice has been amazing because the people in it are just so much fun. And, I become great friends with Alex and, Leslie and all of these people that just, have it be such a good time. Which is also, I think, so important because the show is so exhausting that I've really had to, I feel like in a way it is sort of my life right now as I've adjusted to doing this show 8 times a week is like, something that I feel like people sometimes don't understand, especially, I don't know, people younger who haven't done it is that like, it is so much work and that like, I don't go out. I don't like see people as much. I can't like, I have to, you only talk so much during the day or only like have this amount of stuff to do in the day. So you make sure you can do your show at night. And so to know that I'm going into a group of people that are all like doing it together and are having a fun time is like making it so much easier in that respect.
And to add on top of what you just said, now there's the threat of COVID lurking.
That too.
Lurking behind everything. Yeah. Like you said, you can't go out, afterwards.
I got COVID during tech, which was crazy. So I got COVID during tech and I was out not that long. I recovered pretty quickly, but it was like I had to come back and wear one of those medical masks and like do run-throughs with this medical mask strapped to me. And it was like, I never had this experience of like, I really can't breathe. Like, and honestly, I think like, COVID is serious. I still feel like I have some weird lasting things of like the first couple of weeks. I was just like, oh my gosh. Oh, hello. Hi. This is my dad is visiting. He's giving me a drink.
I was like, is your cat moving the door? No,
cat is giving me a
cat
drink.
is not holding coffee.
No. Thank you. My dad's in town for a couple of days seeing the show. Speaking of my family. But yeah, no, it was crazy. I feel like I didn't have, your body still like recovering. Oh, thank you.
And there's
food.
There's a food.
My dad's just like poking his hand through the door.
I know.
Yeah. So that too of like COVID has made it extra hard. And I felt this way. Like I did my first year of college online.
Here comes more dad.
He's gone. Okay. Thank you, Dad. Okay. Of like, I did my first year of COVID. Well, first year of college online because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And like coming in and sort of being in person and not. It's so hard because it's like some people don't really care. And I don't want to get sick. I don't want to get other people sick. And, we're still dealing with that at the theater of like, wearing masks and, hoping people are staying safe. It's just, it's definitely scary.
So are you still trying, have you put college on pause right now because of Beetlejuice? Or are you doing that online? Because that 8 shows in college, I think, would be
I put it on pause because I just don't think, I think I would burn myself out. I really don't think I could do it. I did first year and first semester, like last semester. And then I went to like one day this semester and was like, I'm not going to be here anymore. Yeah. So I was at Mary Poppins Manhattan. I was sort of undecided, and did a lot of like gen ed classes online. I think people are always surprised that I wasn't going for musical theater. And like, that's something I thought that I'd do for a long time. But, as it got closer to applying and stuff, I realized just for me personally, a BFA wasn't the choice. I think just because I was already working and auditioning and training so much outside of school, I kind of wanted school to just be something different. I wanted to explore my other interests and have it be separate. And also it just, it makes it hard to audition. I love the theater community, but it can be a lot and theater can be toxic. And I think if I was working in it and also just training in it and like, I am not a competitive person, I think it would just be too much for me to be doing that in school and off. And like, it works for some people. But, I think New York is great because there's so many resources to train. Like everyone has their own sort of journey. And you don't have to go to college for theater. If you don't, you can still do it.
And you've got the experience now in the resume, especially after, being in Beetlejuice, right? Like this is a role that is going to define your career.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
and I hope you realize that. I hope you realize that at this
Oh.
point, because this is a role that you're going to be able to reference forever.
Yeah.
It's such an iconic show, and it's such an influential show.
Yeah.
And literally, I was at the reopening, the resurrection show, the reopening a couple months ago.
Oh my God, I was so
and-
scared. I'm like, come back now. Now I'm not scared out of my mind. But
I know. I remember you came out for curtain call. You were just like, "Oh God, it's over!" Yeah.
I was like crying with excitement,
I
and
know.
also just like, ah.
But I was out there with the podcast doing some behind the scenes camera work, and I was talking with people who were in like cosplay, people who had shown up in costume and character, and there were people. I thought I would have trouble talking to people, but they're formed as soon as I started talking to one person. A line formed of everybody who wanted.
I saw that. I think.
Yeah,
I was like, "What's going on up there?" No one recognized me because I like with my hair and my cap or whatever. But I was like going out with my family, and no one stopped me. 0 people. I walked by everyone, and I was like, "No, this is great." I was like, "Don't say anything bad."
Yeah,
right there.
That's funny. That's so funny. I didn't know that you would walk by, but yeah. So this line was there, and like. Almost half the stories were people who wanted to share the fact that they were struggling with depression or anxiety, or have thought about self-harm or things that really things that they were having problems with. That this show, like we were talking about a while ago, that it's such serious subject matter that is dealt with in a very constructive and funny way, that it helps people get through these dark moments that everybody, I think, more or less felt a part of, especially during COVID.
Yeah.
So the show is coming back in a way. Beetlejuice has come back in a way.
Stronger, I think.
Yeah, even stronger. And that was one of my last questions here for you, was like the fan base, now that you're open, now that you're in this role and you've kind of got a little bit of muscle memory into this and can relax a little bit, I assume. Have you been able to go to just sit back for a second and appreciate the intensity, the intense support that the fan base for the show is pouring out night after night?
Yes. I mean, it's just like amazing. You know, sometimes it's like, oh my God, it's a Tuesday night and there are people dressed up and screaming, and, you know, like we've had such wonderful crowds, and it's just like you said, if like I've really been thinking about like how wonderful this character is, and that you don't see a lot of characters like her, and that like she's not an ingenue, she's not, you know, she's a teen, and she is, you know, funny and sarcastic, but also I think is very empathetic and going through depression and going through all of this stuff that is not always shown, I think, but like so many people are dealing with, and especially like right now, I think there is like a mental health like crisis in the world, and that everyone is struggling in some way. And I think that's why so many, and I also, the thing about what I love about her is she doesn't try to change herself. I think a lot of people the characters are trying to change her, but she, you know, she says she is strange and unusual. And I think she's accepted that she is different, and she loves these different quirky things and is sort of nerdy about them. And I think like there's so many people like that can relate to struggling and being different. And also what I love is you see her like work through it and get to the other side, which I think is such a cool message of like, there is hope. There are people in your world that love you and support you. You just need to open your eyes to that, but also not shun your way of grieving and your way of being sad. You know, everyone has their own way of dealing with stuff. And I think just the fan base has been crazy. I don't think I even had any clue what it was until, you know, we opened and I saw everyone out in that audience dressed up and screaming, and they've been wonderful. Anyone who's any fans that are listening, I'm so grateful for all your support, especially as the new person. It's kind of scary to join something that is so loved, but I feel like I've been really welcomed, and some has been sent some wonderful messages just about, you know, the show and what it means to you and all of this stuff. It's like, I honestly feel like I'm doing it for you. I'm trying to do you a service, because I feel like the fans have just loved it forever and are the ones that brought it back. So I'm like the new person that's like I hope we're doing like, I'm so glad we're here for you. Like, I hope you enjoy this thing that you've loved for so long. But it's also, I feel like we're getting a lot of new fans too, which is like really exciting as it's being resurrected. So overall, just super, super grateful.
Yeah, you should be. I would be in this situation too, just because it's such a different industry these days, especially in the last few years. And I think it's I was going to say with the advent of social media and then like Spotify playlists and look at what fan demand has shown producers that previously they weren't able to see. So it's like the popularity of Six exploded because of the London recording, and look at the worldwide sensation that has become. And Be More Chill went to Broadway because of that, and Lightning Thief, and now again Beetlejuice. There was such an outcry and a demand for this show to come back that it was never a question of if it should. It was, how can we get back?
Right, which is just such a cool message too of like, we're doing theater for people. And so it's like, if this is what people want, like we're doing it for you, we're doing it for this community. So it was so cool that we were, that it's hard. Shows are expensive to find new theater to be able to actually bring it back. Like, I don't really know the last time that something like this has happened. I'm sure it has, but just I can't really think. I don't know off the top of my head. So it's kind of like a miracle that it came back. And also it is telling that like so much of the original cast came back. And the reason they said is they love the show. They love the show. They love the fans. They love the people. And like, they're just just happy to be there. And like, I joined and I said, oh, okay, I understand why everyone came back, because it's just such a good group of people and such a fun show. And, I was texting Alex Brightman last night, because we sometimes we'll talk after the show or whatever. And he just texted me last night after the show and said, how fun is our job? How fun is it that we get to come in and do this as work? Just sometimes we have those moments of like, we look at each other on stage and he's doing some like crazy face. And I'm like, I'm just staring at my friend doing this crazy face, and we're getting paid to do this and like just riff off of each other. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's so much fun. And again, like take the perspective, know that you are in a moment that's going to stay with you forever in such a positive way, and influencing many lives and helping so many people get through trauma and mental health issues and pandemic. God, it's just, I love the show. The show is so good. If you haven't seen Beetlejuice yet, everybody needs to go see Beetlejuice, especially because Elizabeth is in it. So,
thank you.
So 3 closing questions I ask everybody to wrap up my episodes.
Yes.
The first one, just very simply, is what motivates you?
Oh, motivates me. My family, my friends. I'm so lucky to be able to do what I'm doing because of my support system. So I feel like that motivates me. Also, just motivating me for the show, knowing that like it's someone's first Broadway show. The other day, there's the sweetest little girl dressed up in a Lydia costume, and I ran into her outside and I said, oh, that was me at one point. I feel like seeing those type of people come in motivates me to know like this is their dream and that was my dream. And so I want to just give them the best performance that they could have. And also just, that everyone that I worked with before, I feel like the gratitude of that, knowing that like they have gotten me here. And sometimes it takes more motivation on those 2 show days. And that 5-show weekend schedule we're switching to. But
so hard. All right. So the second question then is, what advice would you give to your younger self and younger people now who are starting out down a similar path?
Ooh. It's hard to say when, it feels like there's such a rush, but I feel like everyone's journey is completely different. And I know you may have heard that a million times, but like, there's not a correct path to go on to. There's not, I need to be on Broadway right now, or I need to be in college for school, for theater right now, or, and it's okay to have other interests too. I think sometimes people hyper focus and think like this needs to be like, they need to be grinding, and yes, you need to work hard, but you also need to enjoy everything else around you. And I think that is only going to inform you and make you a better performer and artist, is to have those other experiences and and just, take a step back and know that it's going to be okay.
I like that. Yeah. Just take a moment to breathe in anything. Get perspective and breathe and then keep going.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So last question, hardest one. If you can only see one show for the rest of your life, but you can see it as many times as you want, what would you see?
Oh no, that's so hard. Oh gosh. Maybe I'll say maybe I'll do a classic, I'll do Wicked or Phantom of the Opera or something like that. Or Beetlejuice. That's not really a classic, but
it will be.
I gotta promote the show. Also, the show, I do have to promote the show for a second in that I think there's something for everyone. You're gonna be entertained, whether you like the music, the set, the dancers. There is so much going on. I feel like there's always something new to see. So,
and also, the character of Beetlejuice thinks musicals are ridiculous and breaks the fourth wall to acknowledge that. So, even if you hate musicals, this is the show for you.
This is a show for you. We make fun of that too, so don't worry.
That's great. All right, where can we find you on social media?
I'm on Instagram. My Instagram is Elizabeth Teeter Official, and that's kind of it. I also have a TikTok, but I'm not really... It's so funny because there's so many fans on there, and I don't really post that much, and I posted one thing in costume with Dana, and I have a crazy amount of followers now, but I mean that's one of the reasons the show came back is everyone
Presley
on there.
Ryan
so
and TikTok.
I mean I gotta give it Presley started posting all of this amazing stuff and people started getting into it, so it's really incredible. I don't know if I have the same TikTok skills as her, but I'm just sort of on there for fun. But you can also find me on there, but mostly Instagram. Yeah.
Great. I am on Instagram, Twitter at theater_podcast. I'm on TikTok at the theater podcast. I have 6 videos. I don't know what I'm doing on there.
I'm going to go follow you.
Yeah, we'll follow each other and then we can duet this. I don't know. Is that a thing, the duet? Anyway.
I don't really know. I don't know. Dana and I really try. We're okay, we're going to make this now. And then it always is we'll do it tomorrow. And then we'll do it tomorrow because we're trying to figure it out in the 5 minutes we have together before Act 2. And it's just the first time we made one was a disaster. So bad.
Well, it's good to know that even Presley and you, who know what you're doing more than I do, still have to mess up and go over and over again.
Oh,
okay,
yeah, we messed up a lot.
I like that. This has been edited by Well-Rounded Hoodlum Productions. Jukebox the Ghost gave us our intro and outro music. And Elizabeth, thank you so much. You are such a delight to talk to, and I cannot wait to see you on stage again.
Yay, thanks so much.
Take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful.